wanted to like innovate and come up with some new cool ideas and stuff, but also keep the whole thing from going totally off the rails.
Yeah, it feels like you're constantly trying to balance on this like tightrope, right?
Exactly. It's this weird push and pull.
Yeah.
But, good news, everybody, because in this deep dive, we're going to try to make some sense of this whole mess.
That's right. And, what's great is we have a fantastic article to help us out here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. We're looking at Strategies to Balance Innovation and Project Scope by Yu Huat.
Yep, exactly. And it's packed with a ton of useful advice.
Yeah, and Yu Huat really knows his stuff. So we're excited to, really dig into this with everyone.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really helpful for anyone who's, trying to bring new ideas to life without, ending up in a total project disaster.
100%. So, should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
All right, so right off the bat, Yu Huat hits us with this kind of scary stat, Almost half of all IT projects fail because of scoop problems.
Yeah, that is a pretty shocking number.
But then he also says that, most companies think that innovation is like super important, right? So it's like, which one wins out, How do you decide?
Well, and that's exactly the challenge, right? Like, how do you make space for these groundbreaking ideas without letting the project spiral out of control?
Totally.
Well, what's cool is Yuhua actually argues you don't have to choose. You can have both. And that's where this idea of a pre-mortem for innovation comes in.
Ooh, a pre-mortem. Okay.
Okay.
Now that sounds interesting. So what is that exactly?
So it's actually a pretty simple concept. Instead of doing like a post-mortem, where you look back at what went wrong after a project fails, you do a pre-mortem. You imagine the project failed before you even start.
Okay, so you're basically like planning for failure.
Right, but it's not about being pessimistic. It's more about being proactive. So you get your team together and you say, okay, imagine this project crashed and burned because we got too carried away with innovation.
I see. And then what?
And then you work backward, right? You start asking why questions, like why did this happen? What were the warning signs we missed? And what could we have done differently?
That's really interesting. So you're basically identifying potential pitfalls before they even have a chance to trip you up.
Exactly. And the beauty of this is it forces you to think about those what ifs, right? Like, what if we get so excited about this new feature that we lose sight of the original goals? Or what if we spend too much time chasing the latest trends and miss our deadlines?
Right, right. So by asking those questions up front, you can kind of like set up these guardrails, these mechanisms to, catch those problems before they blow up the whole project.
Yeah, I mean, think of it like having an early warning system for scope creep. It helps you stay on track.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, another thing the article talks about is the importance of having a well-defined project charter. And I can see how that can help, keep everyone focused. But isn't there a risk that, if you're too rigid with the plan, you might stifle some really breakthrough ideas?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. It's definitely a delicate balance. You don't want to be so strict that you crush creativity, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But the project charter, think of it as kind of like a roadmap, right?
Okay, yeah.
It shows you the destination, where you're going, and it outlines the main route to get there, And that helps prevent what we call mission creep, where the scope of the project just starts expanding uncontrollably.
Yeah, and, that's a problem we've all seen, right? Like suddenly you're building the Taj Mahal when all you needed was a garden shed.
Exactly, right. So the charter helps to avoid that. But the key is, within that framework, you have to allow for some flexibility.
Okay, yeah, for those creative detours.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you have a fence around your innovation playground, right?
Oh, I like that analogy.
You can explore and experiment, but you can't wander off too far.
Yeah, perfectly put. And to really make that work, Yu Huat also suggests embracing these, iterative development methodologies.
Oh yeah, he talks about Agile and Scrum.
Exactly, right. And, for anyone who's not familiar with those, think of Agile as kind of like building a house room by room, right? Instead of trying to build the whole thing all at once.
Yeah, I see. So you're building in these smaller chunks and then, kind of adjusting as you go.
Exactly. And each step of the way, you get to adapt and improve and incorporate new ideas and, feedback you're getting.
Yeah, and actually, for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with Agile or Scrum, those approaches basically break the project down into these smaller, more manageable chunks. We call them sprints.
Right, yeah.
And each sprint, has its own specific goals and deliverables, which allows you to innovate within those cycles.
Right, you're creating this controlled environment for experimentation. So yeah, it's not like you're just throwing innovation at the wall and seeing what sticks, right?
Totally, totally. And speaking of control, another thing that UWAT emphasizes is the importance of aligning stakeholders early and often. And I got to say, that can be one of the trickiest parts of any project, right?
Oh, for sure. Stakeholder management, it can feel like herding cats sometimes. You've got all these different people with different priorities
Yeah.
and trying to get them all on the same page. Yeah, that's a real challenge.
It really is.
Yeah.
So does UWAT have any tips for taming those cats, so to speak?
He does, actually. He's got some great advice for that. One thing he suggests is holding these regular check-in meetings
Okay.
where everyone involved can voice their concerns and, share their expectations and really just get on the same page about where the project is headed. It's like, if you think of the project as a dance,
Oh, I like where this is going.
everyone needs to know the steps, right?
Yeah.
And if someone misses a beat, it throws off the whole routine.
That's a great analogy now. I know we've been talking a lot about, structure and control and all that, but UWAT also talks about the importance of actually dedicating specific time for innovation.
Yeah.
He even mentions, Google's famous 20% time policy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept.
It is, but I'm curious, do you think that's something that's realistic for, most companies, especially smaller ones with tight deadlines?
I think it can be. It can definitely be challenging, but I don't think it's impossible.
Okay, good.
The key, I think, is to define those really clear limits for those innovation sprints. Make sure that they align with the core objectives of the project.
Right, so it's not just like, okay, everyone, go off and do whatever you want for 20% of the week.
Exactly. You don't want people disappearing down rabbit holes that have nothing to do with the project goals, right?
Right. You want it to be, structured innovation that ultimately benefits the project.
Exactly. And, UWAT actually encourages readers to study some really successful projects, like look at Spotify, look at Tesla for inspiration.
Oh, yeah, those are great examples.
These are companies that are known for their incredibly innovative cultures, right? But they also still deliver results within these really well-defined scopes.
That's a really good point. So as we kind of wrap up here, I want to bring it back to our listeners. If you're tackling a project where innovation is key, what are the main takeaways you should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to remember is that structure and innovation, they're not enemies. They can actually work together.
That's a really important point.
Define your goals clearly. Break that project down into manageable chunks, make sure your stakeholders are all aligned, and then importantly, create that space for dedicated innovation time. And, if you use those tools, you can really create something amazing.
It's almost like UWAT is saying, innovation, yes. Chaos, no.
Exactly. It's disciplined creativity,
Yeah,
right?
she did.
And as you're navigating this whole balance, another thing to think about is how are you actually going to measure success? It's not just about those tangible results, right? It's also about those lessons you learned along the way, the new ideas you generated, and how you can then apply those to future projects, just some food for thought.
I love that. That's a great way to end this. So for everyone listening, keep those ideas in mind as you're working on your next big project. And who knows, you might just stumble upon the next big breakthrough.
Absolutely. The next Spotify, the next Tesla, it could be you.
You never know. All right, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.